This video contains spoilers for Infinity Train Book 3. If you wish to watch this season on your own accords, then please do so and come back to this video. Otherwise, thank you and enjoy.
So after a few months of waiting, Infinity Train Book 3 is finally out. I made a promise that I would make a full video on Book 3 once it's complete, and let me tell you, this season has gone bananas. But how? Let's find out. This is Infinity Train Book 3. So the story of Infinity Train Book 3 once again centers on a new protagonist. This time the protagonist is not a new passenger, but instead the Apex leaders Grace and Simon. Book 3 opens up in the Apex hideout over an opera cover of When I See You, I See Me, the song Jesse was talking about in Season 2. We take a gander into the life of the Apex, Grace preparing herself and Simon painting his little army. We then cut to the opera car, the source of the song, and it all goes downhill from there as... Wait. Is that who I think it is? The Apex solve the car's puzzle and it all goes back to normal. Grace teaches a kid about being attached to nulls, and they later raid one more car, the turtle car, in which the turtles have united with the corgis and even the phone turtle is living a good life. Of course the car gets raided, but it wouldn't last, for one finds them and moves the car, causing Simon to bruise a rib and for our duo to go 47 cars away from Apex HQ. As they attempt to head back, they enter a luminous jungle car, and they camp out, until they are captured by a monster. The monster takes them to his hideout, and he emerges, a gigantic gorilla with tuba tubes coming out of his back. He picks up his hand, and... tickles them. It's revealed that the gorilla is a friend to a fellow passenger, a little girl named Hazel, and it's revealed the gorilla's name is Tuba. It's also revealed that Hazel's number doesn't glow for whatever reason. With all introductions in hand, it's up to Grace and Simon to head back to Apex HQ and figure out the reason for Hazel's dark number, all while exploring the never-before-seen train cars and figuring out a way to get rid of Tuba. The story is kind of the same as all seasons prior as being a Get Home Odyssey story, and I feel like the show is experiencing repetition with its storytelling, especially since it follows the Get Home Odyssey format. But what of the contents? Well, let's just say it goes bananas. While the ending by itself saves the show, more on that later, everything else about Book 3 is exactly the same as you can get. It more or less continues the world building the show does best, and it's as samey as you can get. But hey, you know, less is more. Of course, Infinity Train Book 3 brings over some pretty nice backgrounds. My favorites this time include the Neon Jungle car, the Ballroom car, and the Ocean Bubble car. Once again, my aquatic bias is showing. The characters are... well, I could say they are goodly written. While they may not be well written like Book 1 and 2, they are written good enough that I could say is passable. As for the characters, this show is focused more on Grace and Simon and does pretty good at fleshing them out more. We learn more about the interests of the characters, like Simon's knack for literature as he is writing a trilogy of novels. Also, shout out to this one comment telling me that Grace is not writing novels. I am now realizing that after rewatching these episodes. And we learn about Grace's love of dancing, particularly ballet. Simon is still the figure-painting Shaggy knockoff second-in-command for Book 2, except he goes through an existential crisis towards the end as he starts feeling rejected by Grace thanks to Hazel, and we also discover that he was taken into care and abandoned by the cat. More on her later. Hazel is the new passenger introduced in Book 3, and all I can say about her is that she's basically the equivalent of Tarzan. I know the feral child cliche has been done a million times, but she shares so many of the same aspects as Tarzan. She's raised by a gorilla, doesn't know a thing about her parents, or at least tries to hide it, lives in a jungle, is reintroduced into society, gorilla is female, gorilla lost child before human child came into being, yet unlike Tarzan, Hazel does not walk on all fours or fights a jungle cat. Is this what you call an original character, or is she supposed to be from a Tarzan fanfiction? Cliche can be used to good effect if you put at least an original spin on it, but Hazel is such a nothing character at least until the end where they do put a spin on her. Other than that though, she's somehow unironically the best character in Book 3 because of how energetic she is. Tuba is Hazel's caretaker and she is in fact a she. She's a gorilla with tuba tubes coming out of her back, a tubarilla if you will, that emit a loud bass when she roars. And no, they don't play musical notes or a horn sound like Shrek's ears. Meh. She speaks in a gravelly, monotone, depressed voice that reminds me heavily of from Smiling Friends. Speaking of voices, it's still top notch as always. While it's still good, there are only 2 performances in this season that stick out to me. Kirby Howell-Batiste does a fine job as Grace, Kyle McCarley does at least a good job as Simon, especially in episode 4 where he gives his rage-fueled speech about his abandonment with the cat. Isabella Abiera does a fine job as well as Hazel. Diane Delano as Tuba is one of the performances in book 3 that sticks out to me because, like I said earlier, she speaks in a depressed sounding voice that reminds me heavily of Desmond from Smiling Friends. In fact, the voice even caught me off guard.
I will be over here. Eating a pineapple. Are you sure this is what you want? We were setting up a home here. Roy is at a 10, and I need him to be at about a 6.
Well, life's not going that great for me. My wife left me, my kids left me, my dog died from a broken heart last fall. So I don't know, yeah, probably just gonna end it all or something.
Book 3 of course continues the featuring of celebrities with Alfred Molina, famous for his role as Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2, as the Chandelier who speaks in a royally British accent that I can't get enough of.
I present to you as their entree into society, the mighty Tuba, Hazel, last name unknown, Simon Laurent, and Grace Munro. The exit only makes itself seen to those who've entered society. You must have a debut. Procedures must be followed. I'll take you to the cotillion room to learn the waltz.
Other than all I described, there's not a lot I can say about Book 3. The storytelling is the same, the backgrounds are still nice looking, and the voice acting is still pretty good. Let's end this off by giving our look into the finale. Episode 5 is where everything in Book 3 goes from lighthearted to worse in the Color Clock car. Our gang arrives in the titular Color Clock car and must solve its puzzle to move forward. Grace splits up with Hazel and Simon splits up with Tuba. This is the episode where we also learn a little bit more about Tuba, as before Hazel, she had a daughter named Bugle, and she's also colorblind. After solving the car's puzzle, the train shifts and leaves behind Hazel and Tuba. Tuba throws Hazel over to Grace, and Simon goes back to rescue her from falling. Or so it would seem. For Simon finally does what he was told to do from the beginning. He sets his foot on Tuba's hand and throws her off. Simon comes back and tells Hazel what happened, causing her to run off and for Grace to come after her, only to witness Hazel turning into a turtle monster. See, Hazel's transformation works like the Hulk in that it is caused by emotional stress. After Grace teaches Hazel to keep calm, she ranks Simon and Hazel decides to hold a funeral for Tuba. This scene is amazing, and I have a theory that this scene represents Hazel growing up. With Tuba out of the picture, this scene seems to tell that it's time for Hazel to move on and embrace the responsibilities of life to become her own person. Her own Tuba, if you will. Now that's Wholesome 100. I also want to briefly touch on how these last episodes are paced in comparison to the episodes prior. Episodes 1 to 5 were all rushly paced with little time spent in the cars. In episodes 6 to 10, the pace is slowed down, allowing for more character interaction and emotional moments, like Tuba's funeral. After that beautiful moment, they move on to the flying snake car previously showcased in Lake's montage in Book 2, where the number cluster is coming from. Except the number cluster isn't the apex, it's coming from Amelia! So Amelia is back. This time she's after an anomaly glitching up the train cars, and she sports a look that makes her look like an Imperial commander from the Star Wars franchise, specifically Grand Moff Tarkin. And when she's not wearing the vest, she kinda looks like an elderly Samus Aran. In fact, in that suit, she looks like a gender-bent Grand Moff Tarkin. She tells our trio that she is working for 1-1, and they of course call 1-1 the false conductor, of which Amelia laughs it off. After ditching Amelia, our main trio camps out in a cave, and Simon is tasked to keep watch. But Simon has a plan. He rushes off to the cat's home and begs the cat for her help. I also want to say that it's so surreal seeing the cat without clothes. It's also revealed in the scene that we finally know the cat's name. Samantha, which is honestly a worse name than Kate Mulgrew. Now if that isn't major character development, then I don't know what is. Samantha hands Simon a vial full of those little memory tape farmers from Book 2, and he goes off into the cold storm. Meanwhile, back at the cave, Grace and Hazel are attacked by a giant winged snake, but are thankfully saved by Amelia, who makes them eggs. And then they leave. Simon comes back and attacks Amelia, but is stopped by a force field. Amelia also discovers the true conductor the Apex worship and reveals herself to be the true conductor, much to the surprise of our trio. I also like how Amelia laughs off the fact that the Apex worship her. It's hilarious. They move on to a Hey Yo Whoa car, and Amelia reveals her old life as the conductor to Grace. Simon of course doesn't believe it all, and Amelia reveals the true point of the train.
The whole point of the train is to work through your problems. The worse you do, the higher your number goes. Until you get it down to 0, you're trapped.
Lies!
Simon attempts to take down Amelia, and the stress of the situation causes Hazel to unleash her turtle form, much to the shock of our heroes.
I can't believe it!
It's also revealed that Hazel is Amelia's failed attempt at recreating her husband Ulrich, and she was the anomaly all along. Grace decides to camp out in the car for the night, and Simon enacts his plan. Using the little tape harvesters, he harvests Grace's memories and views the truth for himself, and cries. The next day, Hazel decides to leave with Amelia, fearing the Apex will never trust her. Throughout the season, Grace has grown affectionate towards Hazel. This shows throughout the season and during Tuba's funeral where she cries, and this goodbye scene is no exception. With Hazel gone, they move on to an origami car and Grace and Simon argue, causing Simon to trap her in her memories. This is the point where we also learn Grace's origins. Before the train, she was a talented ballet dancer neglected by her rich, spoiled parents, even stealing jewelry one day just so her parents can notice her. And on that day, she came aboard the train. We then witness the day she met the conductor, a gigantic, black, hound-like monster with a red wave on his— oh, never mind. Simon is convinced that Amelia's lies are altering Grace's memories, indicating that he's gone mad. To paraphrase A Few Good Men, he can't handle the truth. We then witness the day that Grace met Simon, saving him from a cockroach dog and Samantha abandoning him. They've been together ever since, and we also see the birth of the Apex. Grace attempts to reason with Simon and explain it all, but to no use. Back on the train, Simon pushes Grace, breaks the vial of memory harvesters, and abandons Grace, trapped in her own memories. Trapped in her memories, Grace is haunted by giant Hazels and even herself, tormenting her about her terrible leadership and not being honest. She finally gives in and admits that she's afraid. Afraid of being wrong, letting anyone down, and being alone. She wanted the comfort she never had from her parents, and so she had to do everything to be enough, so that she may never be alone. Which in turn causes her number to go down by a landslide, and for her to be free of her torment. And she removes the little tape harvesters, which is probably the most disgusting thing I've seen in the show. She leaves the origami car, but not before helping a few cranes, and returns to Apex HQ, empty, with nothing but Simon's novel. And then she is stopped by Lucy, as in this girl, who refers to her as a void and draws out the Apex, including Simon. Now mad with power, a high number, and looking like a commissar of Warhammer 40k, or perhaps a wannabe Swain cosplayer, the Apex tells Grace the definition of void, which is
a leader who is no longer fit to lead, a danger to us all!
And so they attempt to wheel her. Grace attempts to get her way out of it, telling the Apex she saw the conductor, but Simon still doesn't believe her, and an epic fight scene ensues, during which a cockroach dog emerges and Simon nearly falls, but is saved by Grace. And then he throws her off the train, and goes full crazy scientist levels of mad, complete with a thunderstorm. Except Grace is saved by origami cranes. Then the cockroach dog pounces on Simon and fucking disintegrates him, and then the cockroach dog explodes. Jesus Christ, talk about poetic justice. Grace laments the loss of Simon, and with him out of the picture, Grace gives a passionate speech that they can no longer be the Apex. Lucy questions this decision, to which Grace replies,
Guess we'll have to figure it out.
And so, the season ends with everyone's numbers going down. The end. While the ending by itself saves the season, Book 3 I can say has gone bananas. I'm not trying to say the show has jumped the shark. What I'm trying to say is that this season is good, but not nearly as perfect as the 2 seasons prior. Despite it continuing the good voice acting, nice backgrounds, and the fleshing out of Grace and Simon, it still all feels like repetition to me at the end of the day. Recent word of mouth has been going around that Infinity Train might not continue after Book 3. Despite the flaws of Book 3, I would like Infinity Train to continue as a show, because the show has endless possibilities to expand its universe and it still has a lot of questions to answer. Like, is there more than one Infinity Train? Perhaps there is another one in other dimensions? Other planets? Who made 1-1? Or did 1-1 make himself? Otherwise, if they make Book 4 the final season, they should make this season have a new story. Make it one that is not the usual Get Home Odyssey story, so why not make it center around a denizen? Book 2 sorta made it center on a desert inn with Lake, and it mildly succeeded, so why not make it center fully on a denizen, or better yet, make this season center on Amelia. Amelia is in my eyes the catalyst behind practically everything in Infinity Train, good or bad, the unwanted cars, the apex, Hazel. If the show is going to end, make it end with the villain making amends for her actions and leaving the train. That is the point where I would end the series. No matter how far downhill the show goes, Infinity Train still has a lot of questions to answer and an ending waiting to happen. True story, but my question about judges in the mirror world was actually answered by Owen Dennis himself in an AMA on Reddit. According to Dennis, Mirror World runs on Dredd rules. So I guess I could say that the Flex are basically the equivalent of Judge Dredd. Otherwise, my point still stands. This season has gone bananas. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to rate this season a garlic out of tulip. Or in other words, a 7.5 out of 10. Not bad, but far from perfection.